Welcome to another exciting episode of American Warrior Radio, coming to you since 2009. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, Space Force, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place, American Warrior Radio. We're always efforting to bring you news, notes, interviews, and current events for all things military and veteran related. The bumper music for American Warrior Radio is provided by none other than combat veteran and mill hop artist Stephen Hobbs. Thank you, Stephen. With that said, let's kick the tires and light the fires and get this episode off the ground. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you visited us today and every time you tune into American Warrior Radio, because we are always bringing you great information and awesome guests. We have with us again Leah Buchholz from Prestige Veterans Medical Consulting. Hi, Leah.
Hey, my friend. How are you?
Doing great. I'm so happy every time you're on because, you know, we're all about getting good information out there to the audience, whether it's a spouse of a military member that's complaining about some low back pain, or maybe they have a PTSD issue, whatever it is. Maybe it's a veteran, him or herself, that needs some instruction. They need those next steps. This is the place that we want to start the whole ship rolling in the right direction. Today, since you're expert on, well, first of all, for those that haven't seen you on a previous episode, little bio.
Well, my name is Leah Buchholz. As Garren said, I am a physician assistant, Army veteran, and former compensation and pension examiner. So my company, Prestige Veteran Medical Consulting, assists with independent medical opinions, for often referred to as Nexus letters, for VA disability cases. So I have a lot of, you know, I spent 19 years in the military, 13 on active duty.
Thank you for your service, Leah.
Thank you. And a lot of that was dealing with sports medicine related issues for, you know, back pain, knee pain, you know, just what we like to call Army back, you know, being in the infantry, being in whatever, being a mechanic, having back pain all the time. And so Garren and I thought it would be good to come on and discuss back pain because it's one of those most common conditions that veterans have.
It is, and maybe a lot of people that are out there in American Warrior Radio land and Prestige Veterans land don't understand it's a very claimable condition, even if you haven't had a surgery. Can you explain a little bit of that, putting your C&P examiner hat on for a moment?
Sure. Yes. So lots of different conditions can affect the back, whether it's just a lumbar strain. It can be, you know, degenerative disc disease with radiculopathy, which is another condition that can be tied to it. You can have all kinds of issues with your back that have had surgeries or are just mechanical types of low back pain that don't require surgery. And a lot of that stuff can be related to occupational hazards while you were on active duty, rough marching, carrying heavy things, all the different occupational stressors we have as active duty or even reservists or guardsmen. Or there can be an injury that you sustain. Could be related to a paratrooper incident or, you know, being deployed.
Vehicle accident.
Motor vehicle. Right. And it doesn't even have to be that it was, you were driving a military vehicle. Maybe you served for 20 years and you got in a vehicle accident just with your family. That's still a line of duty injury if you're an active duty service member, right? And you weren't doing something crazy like drinking and driving and things like that. So many people don't realize that some of these things that happen to them while on active duty continued in what's called can continue in a degenerative cascade and get worse over time, resulting in chronic low back issues.
So let's just throw a hypothetical out there. There's a young gal, she's a senior airman in the Air Force. She's driving off base and she gets rear-ended and she ends up afterwards not feeling so good. She goes to the doctor because her low back, it's usually the neck, I understand, but we're hypothetical land here, people. Her low back is bothering her. This is important, right? That she gets into the doctor to make that complaint.
It is important to make sure you have what we call contemporaneous medical evidence, right? So you have some documentation on what your injuries are, but not everyone has that luxury because, you know, maybe you're a Vietnam era veteran and there weren't great documentation standards, right? Or maybe you're one of these people that don't, you know, pilots are a perfect example. They don't complain about a lot of things because they don't want it to affect their ability to perform their job, right? So that happens quite a bit. And, you know, if you're lacking in the contemporaneous medical evidence department, buddy statements can be helpful. What was seen or heard, from your spouse or from your battle buddy or from your first sergeant, if you're still in touch, and they can write a statement,
Very
that.
valuable information, and we
Mhm.
could get into the legal aspect of that in just a moment. But you mentioned this contemporaneous medical evidence. This is very important for somebody. Again, we're not setting aside the Vietnam or the older generation vets that have specific issues they're going to have to do or overcome to well ground their claim. Getting back to my hypothetical with the young lady that got in an accident, she goes and sees the doctor. Is that it? Or does the doctor maybe write a script? What kind of evidence do you, and again, you're looking at this as a C&P examiner, what is it you're looking for?
So I think there's a human factor to this, unfortunately, that just like raters and examiners, they're all human, right? So they have to think about, did this condition lead to this current condition? So for me, I see the incident in service, and I'm going to take the veteran's personal testimony into consideration. Have they had an accident since service? What are the other risk factors that they have? And if they don't have any other evidence, but they are a very good historian, I'm probably going to say, yeah, I think this is related to this, because that threshold my opinion, has to be 50-50, right? My opinion has to be at least as likely as not. It's at least as likely as it is not that this condition is related to this incident. I don't have to be 100% sure, right? The VA doesn't ask me that. They just ask me, is it at least as likely as not? And so if there's no other variables and the person has a pretty good history, and I see the evidence of the initial incident, I'm probably going to say, I think this is related. Now, there may be some people who are like, hey, you were injured in 1996, and I don't see any more documents on this until 2018. And they may have a problem with that, right? They may have a problem and say, well, there's too much of a gap in care, and these are unrelated. So it just depends, and filling in those gaps and explaining, hey, I self-treated. Maybe you didn't have any, like I have back pain every day. I don't go to the doctor for that.
I've been taking Motrin for the last 10 years.
Now, somebody may take issue with that, but the best thing you can do for yourself is explain that and provide, like, hey, I had this incident. If you have no other documentation for years, explain why, right?
Yes. And also, I'm just throwing this out for the viewer. If that is the case you find yourself in, and you're saying, just your personal testimony, as Leah alluded to, yeah, it's been with me all this time. Maybe I take Motrin. Maybe you can reflect back on the time when the doctor saw you last and they said, well, look, there's nothing more we can do other than surgery. And you're definitely not going to go for surgery. That's important for the C&P examiner to know.
Right. Or sometimes we just say, listen, this is a degenerative process, and it's not going to really get better. Some can, depending on what it is, if it's just a strain or a sprain. But if you've got a bunch of arthritis, that's pretty much irreversible, and it's going to keep progressing over time. So sometimes we self-treat. But back to your original comment, is if it's still bothering you and you have after the accident, right? Let's say you just came off active duty last year, this airman had a car accident. It's still bothering her. If she's able to, and it's bothering her, to continue to follow up, not only for her claims process, but for her medical care, if it's bothering her, to continue to keep that documentation and that care going.
Exactly. And that's so valuable. Leah, I want to thank you so much for joining us again on American Warrior Radio. And we'll have you back as a guest, because I know our viewers are getting the right information at the right time, and they've got to share it. Prestige Veterans Medical Consulting, Leah Buchholz, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
And for coming on and clearing some stuff up for us about C&P exams for the low back. Appreciate it. People, until next time, don't forget, thank a vet. Hi everyone, it's Garrencone with American Warrior Radio. I'm here with my good friend Christian. We're here to deliver a very important message about a crisis in our land.
Suicide prevention, more specifically, veteran suicide prevention.
22 a day are taking their own lives. This must stop. This can't continue. If you or someone you know is contemplating suicide, please know that God has tomorrow planned for you. Don't take your own life, and just remember, suicide is a permanent solution
to a temporary problem.